the fortress is burning. High above southern France, on a jagged crown of rock, Montségur has fallen. Below it, the world of the Cathars is being erased by fire, sentence by sentence, body by body, memory by memory. But according to later legend, something escaped before the final destruction. Not an army, not a king, a secret, carried out under cover of darkness, protected by the last people willing to die for it. Was it treasure, forbidden knowledge, or something far more dangerous? A story about a sacred bloodline. To understand why this question survived, we have to move slowly. Not because the legend is simple, but because it is too easily made simple. Every century that touched it added another layer: faith, fear, politics, romance, and the human hunger to believe that history has hidden doors. Montségur was not just a fortress. It became a wound in the imagination of Europe, a place where persecution, belief, and rumor fused so tightly that later generations could hardly tell where history ended and myth began. In the cold air of the Pyrenees, the final days of the Cathars would become more than a tragedy. They would become the opening scene of a mystery that stretched toward the Holy Grail, Mary Magdalene, and the idea that the greatest secret in Christianity was never a cup, but a name. Before we venture further into the shadows, take a moment to subscribe, so you never miss a secret that history has tried to forget. And as we begin, leave a comment letting us know where in the world you are watching from tonight. It's a reminder of how far these forgotten echoes can reach. For now, picture the mountain after the flames have gone low. The stones remain. The bodies are gone. And somewhere between the ashes and the silence, a question begins its long journey through history. Before the Grail became a clue, before it was treated like a secret passed through blood and hidden in churches, it was something stranger and more fragile. It was a literary image. That may sound disappointing at first. It should not. Some of the most powerful mysteries in history did not begin as locked rooms or buried gold, but as stories people could not stop retelling. The Grail entered the imagination of medieval Europe not as a police file, not as a church document, and not as a verified relic with a chain of custody. It appeared in Romance literature, in the world of knights, tests, wounded kings, and half-understood visions. In those early stories, the Grail is not yet the neat object modern audiences often picture. It is not always clearly a chalice. It is not yet surrounded by a fully formed conspiracy. It moves through the narrative like something seen in a dream and remembered badly after waking. A vessel, a sacred object, a sign of grace, a mystery that exposes the spiritual condition of anyone who approaches it. That is important, because later centuries would try to make the Grail solid. People would want to hold it in their hands. They would want it to have a location, a bloodline, a code, a map. But in its earliest literary life, the Grail resists that kind of certainty. It functions less like a treasure and more like a mirror. The knight who sees it is not simply being shown an object. He is being measured. The medieval imagination understood this well. In a world shaped by feudal loyalty, religious devotion, violence, and confession, the greatest adventure was not only across forests and battlefields, it was inward. A knight might be brave enough to split armor with a sword, but still fail because he lacks humility, purity, or the ability to ask the right question at the right moment. That detail is easy to miss. In many Grail stories, Failure does not come because the hero is physically weak. It comes because he is spiritually incomplete. The Grail belongs to a world where symbols do heavy work. A wounded king can stand for a wounded kingdom. A barren land can stand for a moral disorder no army can fix. A mysterious vessel can suggest divine presence, lost wholeness, or redemption, waiting just beyond human reach. The story is not asking, where is the object hidden, so much as, what kind of person could recognize it if it appeared? And this is where the later myth begins to bend the older one. Modern readers often approach the Grail backward. We begin with the suspicion that something has been covered up, and then we search the medieval material for hints. We are trained by thrillers, secret societies, and coded paintings to look for evidence behind the symbol. But the earliest Grail literature does not behave like a dossier with the names removed. It behaves like a spiritual romance, a sacred puzzle in the language of story. That does not make it meaningless, quite the opposite. It makes it dangerous in a different way. A fact can be checked. A relic can be tested. A document can be dated, disputed, or exposed as a forgery. But a symbol can survive almost anything because every age can pour its own anxieties into it. For medieval audiences, the Grail could speak to sin, grace, kingship, and the longing for a restored world. For later audiences, especially modern ones, it could become something else entirely. A missing chapter of history, a forbidden truth, a key to power hidden in plain sight. The Grail's power comes partly from its incompleteness. The stories do not close every door. They leave space. And wherever history leaves space, imagination eventually moves in. This is not a flaw in the legend. It is the engine of the legend. Had the Grail been described with perfect clarity from the beginning, had it been catalogued like an inventory item, it might have remained trapped inside a single medieval text. Instead, it stayed unstable. It could be a vessel, a vision, a test, a promise. It could belong to the altar, the court, the wilderness, or the wounded interior life of a knight who does not yet understand what he has seen.